So now we only need to finish this. Let's make the cuts first. And like I was explaining before, this is where it helps to see the reference that we imported. So we're going to go back and edit the canvas to display through to roughly see the scale and size of the elements. So for these cuts, this is roughly how wide it is. We're not worried about how deep because we're basically just creating a template for that cut, making it rounded. And now we're gonna draft the placement. We're gonna open the bodies here, select this one, Control C, Control V to copy it, place it around properly. It looks like the placement is mirrored from top to bottom. So technically a lot faster and easier to just take both. Control C, Control V, rotate them around. And put them here. Also remember that it's slightly at an angle, so we can keep it like this. In the reference, they're actually on the same level, so I'm gonna adjust the placement. Again, in the reference, slightly different, but I'm gonna add it to this side and pretend that this is still the same cut. They're actually going slightly too deep in the top. Keep it like that. There you go, more or less. Let's make the cuts all at the same time. I'm selecting the target body and then the tool bodies that are going to be making the cut. You can see that in the preview now. And now we can add that chamfer. It probably makes sense to edit on the bottom, even though it doesn't exist in the top. But this will help us get the believable result, because at the end of the day, that's what we're after. And here's how we do the screw, as I was explaining before. Because we're starting with this face, we already Fusion already knows that this is rounded, so it gives us the point to start the circle from. Of course, if we started the cylinder from this face, we have rarely something to start with. But again, because these are two faces that have the circular edges in here, Fusion knows that this is going to be the center for that circle to match it perfectly. If we started a complete face that doesn't have it, we wouldn't have that. So sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. This is the template for the screw. For the cross, my trick is going to sketch rectangle, center rectangle. So every time you start a rectangle, it goes from the center. This is much easier with, to achieve proper placement for a screw, like for that opening. Oops. I'm gonna reselect the profiles. Cut that in. fillet the edge. Again, you could do this just to, you know, if you have some sort of a close-up, you know you're gonna have in your render, just smooth everything out. But from the point of view of economy of topology, this makes 0 sense to do. This is just like super fine detail you're never gonna see. So we're not gonna bother with that much. Just move this face a bit. We're gonna take this existing screw and propagate it throughout. I pressed Control-C only once, but then I'm pressing Control-V multiple times. This is a new Control-C, Control-V because it's closer to where I need it to be. There you go. Maybe, again, it doesn't exist in the reference, but for the sake of having better read for these openings, you can add the chamfer. It's definitely going to improve the look. Just a tiny bit. Again, in reality, this doesn't exist, but I wouldn't go too far with that. Let's now create the grooves on the top, which these are just basically just two slanted sketch lines. This green, this is on the way. This green line was telling us that right now they are parallel. As you can see, the two parallel green lines. I'm gonna get rid of this unnecessary one. You just want to keep your sketches as clean as possible. And then, oops. Use Shift to select both, Control-C, Control-V while you're in Sketch, because once you leave the sketch, you're not going to be able to have that. And just keep pasting them roughly at a distance that makes sense. Once you have several, you can just select all of them to help you maintain spacing. That's a common trick in 3D. You want to do this last one as well to help with the bottom piece. And then we're going to take these new faces. Make sure there are no weird intersections. If there are, maybe work around them. I was lucky not to have like too many weird ones. Press pull. See if deleting, like extruding downward, works better, or up. In the reference, it's actually going up. So we're gonna join, and we're gonna just chamfer the edge to make it look like it's flowing properly with the existing one. At this point, it's just pure magic how it matches everything. There you go. So now it looks like it's properly cut. And this is kind of like weird. You can, of course, worry about it and make sure that something like this happens. You can also adjust your placement. So in reality, this probably won't happen. But I don't think it matters that much, to be honest. You can also do the chamfer on the other side if you want. Sometimes it's this extra effort that makes all the difference. Oops. It's weird how, because of these faces are coincidental, I guess. Or because when we were pulling them out, they became one body. Is that what happened? Let's check. Yeah, that's what happened. They have been accidentally merged. What we're gonna do is just gonna use split body, take this whole body, and splitting tool is gonna be this face. That's gonna help us make the split, because I don't want them to be the same body. I want to have as many interesting shadows at the same time there. So now it's working properly. Just slightly better look. If you wanted to go really detailed, you could just fillet the edges here. Which is only imitating how light reacts with material, I guess, in the end. Or it looks better. It just imitates that real world material doesn't have that many sharp cuts, sharp turns. Let's do the screws that are getting inset, and for that I'm not going to create a new one. I'm just going to use the old one, and I'm going to modify it. So as I'm making the turn, making sure it's 90, bring it out here. We have two vertical ones. Just for the logic's sake, I'm going to align it with this for whatever reason. Copy it down. Screws are rarely put very close to the edge of the other object, so it makes sense to have them at fair distance from the edges here. Move them in. So we're going to use the body of this to create the cuts, just like that. Keep the tools. And now if I move the screw out, you already should guess that now there's an opening. So now that means that I have this common edge that I can use. Like this. And I'm going to try and remove the fillet here. It's one of the ways to fix your mistakes. You just select the face you don't want to be there, and you press delete. And this magically disappears, right? So if I didn't want this chamfer here, if I press delete, should calculate and remove the chamfer. This is just pure black magic, I swear. It's one of the most exciting tools, and at the same time, it's an instrument to help you be more creative. You know, because removing faces like this can also be used creatively. Now we're getting very close to the end. I think this is right about where we can stop, and then we will continue with more theory, and then we'll use the finished version of the scope in the final assembly. We're just gonna put it on the rifle.